Alright guys, TacticalRab back again today. Hope you are all doing well and enjoying your day so far, and in just a couple of days time the Super Week is going to kick off. This is going to be massive for season standings. At the end of this week we are going to know what the major seeding looks like, and after the major concludes I imagine that some of these teams might be considering roster changes. So if they have a bad week this time around, and there's some teams which certainly are in a bit of a difficult spot, which players' spots are potentially on the line to be changed. This season, especially with these 14-day contracts we're going to discuss here in a second, it makes it a lot easier for pro teams to make changes. There's no like set roster change periods as well. They can basically do what they want whenever they want, and as a result of that I imagine a lot of changes are going to be happening this season. And if, well, some of these players don't prove themselves, what does it potentially mean for their spot this season, but also into next season's title as well? Intrigued to hear your thoughts in the comment section below. Like if you guys enjoyed the video, subscribe if you are new. As always, I'd greatly appreciate it. It really helps out the channel. Thank you very much indeed for doing that. Let's hop into things then. So this is what happened a couple of weeks ago. Chrome talks about how Zero stuck in the UK. The London Royal Ravens were scouting some top North American talent before the kickoff classic, right? And they were looking actually at PaulX to come over to this team. And PaulX describes as well the fact that he turned down the contract to go on to London because, it was a 14-day thing. Like, he didn't really want to take the risk of leaving. And then Sib, I think, was meant to be taking his spot on the Western team, and then PaulX would be in a bit of a difficult spot finding a new team after that. So he actually turned down the 14-day contract with the pro team, but it was likely that that wasn't a long-term thing. But this is effectively how it works now. If you're a pro team and you want to just try someone out for 14 days, you can do so. Sign them to a 14-day contract on what would be the minimum salary for that period. See if they work in the team. If they don't, get rid of him. If they do, bring him into the starting lineup. This is, a lot easier, therefore, to make changes than other titles that we've seen in previous years. And we've already seen some changes this season. We saw Havoc get benched from the Florida Mutineers before the season even began, with Neptune coming in. Then we've got the Ravens right here with Zero can't come up for the moment, at least, given the whole situation, the travel situation in the world. So Parasite comes into the starting lineup for the Royal Ravens. So before the season's even really begun, we've got a couple of roster changes coming into the fray. And, as the season goes on, I imagine this is certainly going to continue in a similar vein. We imagine that Hydra at some point is potentially going to be able to get out to the States. That means that very possibly, I think at some point in the season, subliners look to make a change there, given it will be hopefully relatively easy for them to do so. And we see a lot of things happening right here. So which players are in a make or break position? Because this league is hyper competitive. Next season, yes, we might have expansion, but I think a number of these players you're looking at right now and thinking, if they don't have the best season this season, if they can't prove themselves quite where they would like to be, then what happens next time around? Are we in a position where we never see them in the Pro League again, and they had they end up retiring and things like that? It's certainly a possibility. We saw it last season, a number of players, especially on the Seattle Surge, for example, no longer in a spot. And we might ask the similar questions of a guy like Loony right here. This clip just appeared on my timeline again, so I thought, maybe it's relevant for this video, the fact that, Loony was out last year on the Toronto Ultras bench. Then, this season hasn't had the best start to this season necessarily. I think you can, say this really about a lot of the Seattle Surge guys we're going to look at in a second here. The fact that, if they don't turn it around and have a great season, these guys could be out of the squad, if not but certainly by the end of the season, if not earlier than that. And especially given how long the season is, you can see right here, there is a lot of Call of Duty to be played. After the Stage 1 Major, if these teams aren't looking in the best spot, they're not particularly playing very well, the management staff are going to be like, look, we need points to get we need CDL points so that we get a good seed at the World Championship, right? The World Championship seeding is going to be massive this year. If you're in the bottom 4 of the league, you don't even get to go to the World Championship. You have to be in the top 8 at the very least to actually go to champs. That's like a must for almost all of these teams, and obviously only 8 of them are going to make it, right? And therefore, a lot of these teams are going to be thinking, if it's not working through Stage 1, let's try something else so we can turn this around by Stage 2, Stage 3 to get to the point where we can get the CDL points that we require. Most of the teams, I'm sure, are going to be in an absolutely fine spot, but as we saw, this is the 2019 CWL, and these are all the names that I've highlighted in red that are no longer on a starting lineup in the league. So a lot of these players, as you can see right here, some of them are still around the league, of course, there's no surprises there, but a lot of them either fell out of the league last year and then maybe have come back, or they've just, completely disappeared from relevance on the top tier side, and maybe they'll be back at some point when the league does expand. We can see a lot of names right here. Of course, Zuma is the unfortunate situation. He would still be there. But a number of these players that maybe you would have expected to still be at the top level a couple of years ago are now no longer there. And a similar thing is going to happen. I'm pretty sure a similar thing happened last season. A similar thing is largely going to happen this season, at least in terms of being relevant at the top, because some of these guys, if they don't have the best season, they may well just just go down and end up on a new team next season if the league does expand. But at the same time, I think that you could very much argue that some of these players have a make or break year on their hands to determine exactly whether they're going to be at the top level of professional play in future years. Not just players that might not even be in the scene, but whether they actually get on teams that can contend for championships. So as we look right here, Atlanta, Dallas, Chicago, I don't think they're making any changes anytime soon. You could certainly argue a few of these guys have something to prove this season. Certainly like Dashy, for example, maybe Scump has a nice bounce back year from his perspective. That's certainly something you probably want if you're an OpTic fan, but at the same time, they don't really have much to prove in the sense that, if Scump has a bad year, he's not going anywhere, right? If he wants to still play next year, he's still going to be in the Pro League, right? So not necessarily make or break in that sense, but some of the teams I put in orange right here, it's a possibility, I would say, for these teams that they make some sort of change. I mean, you look at this Mutineers squad, for example, yes, they had a great event at the Kickoff Classic where they beat Atlanta FaZe, but then this first week they lost to the Ultra. If they don't have a bounce back week significantly right here, then, maybe you look at a guy like Slacked on the team and think, okay, honestly, from my perspective, he's been performing pretty well. It's been Skies who was underperforming that first week, and I think the Mutineers will be absolutely fine and will honestly contend for championships at some point this season. But if Slacked maybe underperforms and Mutineers are in a difficult spot, does he find himself in a tough spot again as they did on the Seattle Surge last season? Los Angeles Thieves, I think, have a decent chance sticking together the entire way through, but certainly we talked about potential chemistry issues arising on that squad. Minnesota Rokkr, I think, are likely to stay together as well and not have too much to prove necessarily on these teams, but it's really some of these teams that are in red right here that I've put that some of the players on this team have a lot to prove, and if they don't have a great season, don't have a great bounce back year, then their spot is definitely on the line mid-season, certainly at the end of the season, I would argue. So I've pointed out a few in particular, starting off with the Royal Ravens, right? So Dylan, we talked about him potentially having a bounce back year. He had a very rough Modern Warfare. In this title so far, he's had his moments, he's had his ups, he's had his downs, certainly. And if he doesn't prove himself again on the Royal Ravens, they're going to have a difficult time choosing the direction they want to go going forwards. Because there's a lot of talent in the UK region. You've got Afro sitting here on the bench. You've got Zero as well. Of course, Parasite is now on the starting team instead of Zero, but you'd imagine Zero is coming back at some point. And if Dylan, maybe continues to underperform the level we saw from him in Black Ops 4, then is he going to be out of the league? I'm not necessarily sure other pro teams want to pick him up outside of the Royal Ravens. So he maybe finds himself in a bit of a difficult spot. Paris Legion as well, just briefly, because you've got guys like Scraps, for example, that was very much borderline whether he would even get into the league. You've got Accra as well, who maybe didn't have the greatest year last time around on Los Angeles Grillers. So if this team doesn't do great, you've got to think, if you're the Paris Legion, what changes are you potentially making mid-season to make this team better? And who steps out of the team? Is it Classic? Aqua as your main AR is probably going to stay there pretty solid, but maybe you've got you're looking at the Westar team and you're looking at Tom Gravity and you're thinking, well, damn, he's a very solid assault rifle. I mean, maybe if the team's underperforming, we need someone different in the team. Who really knows exactly what happens here, right? But as I say, it's very easy this season for these teams to make a number of changes very quickly indeed. So let's look at LAG and Seattle Surge, right? Because these are still the two teams that even on paper, like LAG have been looking better and Seattle have been looking better. I still feel like there's a lot of players on these teams that, their spot is potentially in jeopardy as the season goes on. And Seattle maybe have the potential to be like a top 6 team in the game. LAG, I'm not sure they quite do. And even if both these teams are sitting around the top 8, top 10 mark, as I say, that's not enough to get yourself to the World Championship. You're going to need to do something about it. So on the LAG side, maybe you could look at a guy like Silly, you could look at a guy like Assault, for example, or Vivid. Maybe Vivid honestly look pretty solid. And Apathy, he's such a good player, man, that if Apathy still wants to compete for a long time, he probably still can find a way to do so. But maybe Silly, Assault, these guys that have been together since winning the World Championship in 2018, they haven't really had much success since then. If they don't have the greatest season, this might be the final nail in the coffin, right? I know people look at them, okay, they won the World Championship 3 years ago, but what does that really mean nowadays? And certainly this could be the final season we see them at the highest level. Then the Seattle Surge one is the interesting one to me, because I think you can look at a number of players on this team and see it as a make or break season from different perspectives. Certainly Loony on this team, as I say, coming back off Toronto Ultra last season, the fact that he had a difficult time over there, now he's got his opportunity to lead these guys. He's played, of course, with some of these players in the past, Octane and Gunless especially, had good success with. He now comes in as the kind of leadership figure to this team, not expected to put up crazy numbers, but at the end of the day, if he doesn't put up the greatest figures and the other team's IGL type players are doing so, can't really compete on the SMG level, then certainly a question has to be asked, do we need Loony as the IGL on this team? Is it going to be his final season as a professional player? Prestinni as well, I think you can ask them questions. The fact that, yes, he won the World Championship in 2019. Last season, there was the difficult situation where, he comes off Florida Mutineers after dropping out for some mental health reasons for a little while. Then he comes on to Chicago Huntsmen. Then the 5v5 thing to 4v4 thing happens. He gets, dropped off that team. And now he finds himself on Seattle Surge in a spot where he's pretty much required to be a major SMG SMG Slayer. So far, he's looked pretty good. I've been pretty impressed with what I've seen from him, but at the end of the day, there's still some inconsistencies there creeping into his gameplay. And well, if things don't go so well, where does Prestinni find himself in the future, especially as a lot of these teams are probably looking for a slaying SMG if he can't necessarily prove he can do it? As I say, it's make or break. These players can certainly turn up and well, prove themselves at the highest level once again, but still, certainly some questions I think for a number of these players. You look at Gunless, for example, as well. I think Seattle Surge is just stacked with a make or break team in general, to be honest, because Gunless last year dropped off Chicago Huntsman every single year with the exception of World War II, where he was playing alongside Loony in on the Rise Nation team. That's the only time that his team didn't break apart for the entire year, pretty much. And even then, they did make a roster change mid-season, dropping out methods for Slasher. And if this team breaks apart once again, and Gunless has an underwhelming season, so far he's looked pretty good, there's no doubt about that. But, if this team breaks apart once again, then a lot of people are going to be saying, I'm sure next season, like, maybe Gunless will still find a spot in the league, but is he ever going to get another spot on a high-tier team if the reputation is there that this guy just breaks teams apart? So that is really the question to me. And Octane, I also think you can make this question mark for, because yes, we imagine at the end of this season, Octane probably isn't going to be on Seattle Surge. I think there's a good chance that he probably wants off this team and wants to try and find his new way, because the first year, it was looking so good on paper, didn't work out. Then they decided to extend his contract, which I'm sure is pretty hefty anyway, so I'm sure he's getting treated relatively well by the Surge, but I'm sure he wants to find himself on a team that can actually contend and win championships again, like he did on 100 Thieves back in Black Ops 4, for example, and even before that on Luminosity and some other teams back in the day. Doesn't seem like to me Seattle are going to compete for championships, which means that Octane really has to prove himself, right? He has to prove himself to the top tier teams. I don't know if Atlanta FaZe and Dallas and OpTic would even consider it. Los Angeles Thieves as well. If Slash is going to be their main AR that they keep for a number of seasons, where does Octane even go next season to potentially be on a championship caliber squad if he leaves this team? Maybe options will open up on the table. Who knows if Minnesota Rokkr or something might look for a different option depending on the way that they go and how their season works out over the course of it. But Octane certainly needs to prove, I think, once again, that he can be one of the best ARs in the game. If he has something of an underwhelming season right here, then who are the top teams in the game are really going to want to take a chance on Octane once again to bring him in as their main assault rifle? Maybe they certainly will, but if he doesn't have the best season, maybe it will drop him down slightly in terms of the free agency power rankings, if that is how the season finishes off. But I'm certainly intrigued to hear your guys' thoughts in the comment section below. Just one clip to finish off the video, this from Attach. COD World War II is back next year, say less. This is an incredible artillery 1 versus 3. You guys might remember from way back in the day, given the fact that, rumoured that World War II is going to be the next title from Sledgehammer Games. There's incredible 1 versus 3 round 11 clutch on the way to FaZe Clan winning this entire event at the Stage 1 playoffs in World War II. Pretty incredible stuff. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did enjoy it, I'd greatly appreciate a like on the video. It really helps out the YouTube algorithm know you enjoyed this content. Other people like you may enjoy this content as well, and upgrade the competitive Call of Duty community. Thank you for watching as always, take care, and I will see you next time.
Scump with a kill, Priestahh with a kill. It's all on Attach now. The comeback seems to be dead. The comeback seems to be dead. He runs through his own artillery. He runs through his own artillery, and now it's a 1 versus 1.
Yeah, but Crim knows where he's going. Crim has read this perfectly, but I think Attach saw him. Did Attach see him?
One-on-one. One-on-one.
Oh my God.
Crim's in the sight. Attach tracking back. Crim goes low on him.
I think he might have saw him. Running around the Rosie.
Attached to the other side, 20 seconds on the clock. Crim's got to find the kill or get this planted. Oh my God, Crim's hitting mid-map. Attach comes back. Here's the gunfight! Attach is able to win it! FaZe Clan up 2-0 with the 1-5 comeback!
Kidding me? What a play out of Attach OpTic. They don't expect him to go around.